Adventures.
Greetings all, it's Chuke here from Chuke's Outdoor Adventures. Well, thankfully, as far as I know, there haven't been any bear attacks this week. Thank you to all of you who have been logging onto my website and sending me these stories. So no bear attacks, but I did get a couple interesting stories. More drama around the Grizzly number 1063 in the Grand Teton Park. We talked about that a couple weeks ago. There was a sow grizzly and her cubs were killed by the male grizzly in order to put her back in heat so he could mate with her. That is something that happens all the time. Now, official says it's rare, at least in one of the articles I mentioned, but that happens all the time up here. It's why when a trophy hunter takes a massive, older, male dominant boar, grizzly bear or brown bear out of the mix, takes them out, people throw a fit. You're actually helping the bear population when you do that, because the big, mean, old big ones go around killing cubs and eating them. It's just something that has gone on forever. So I believe this is an article from Cowboy State Daily, and it's entitled "Hazing of Grizzly 1063 Led to Cubs Being Killed," photographer Tom Manglesson says. So, and he might have a point here. I was reading it and I do agree with him on some points. So the hard hazing of a popular Grand Teton grizzly and her 3 yearling cubs led to 2 of the cubs being killed and cannibalized. That's just what the big grizzly bears do, by a large male grizzly, a prominent wildlife photographer said. In May, Grizzly 1063 and her cubs were being hazed away from residential areas at Coulter Bay and Grand Teton National Park, according to the National Park Service. Now, I'm not sure how they hazed there, but up here, officials will use poppers. That's a 12-gauge slug that just makes it's like a big firecracker, makes a popping sound. And sometimes they will use rubber bullets in the slugs too, just to kind of scare the bears off. 2 of her yearling cubs were apparently killed and partially eaten by a male grizzly on May 13th. Wildlife photographer Tom Manglesson, who has followed Teton's grizzlies for years, said he thinks that the hazing caused 1063 and her cubs to become separated, giving a boar, which is a male grizzly, a chance to kill the cubs. He was on a wildlife viewing and photography trip to Africa when he got word that 1063's cubs had been killed. He said that he suspected what many had been saying, that the hazing of the bears was partly to blame. Notice that's partly, because that's just what bears do. He does make some points here, though. I know about the hazing of Bonita, aka Grizzly 1063, before I left, and got numerous reports that the park continued hard hazing her and her cubs often, and still are, he said. Now, sometimes they have to haze, because if these bears are going in and picking up trash in human areas, they become habituated to human areas, and then they get mad when they don't get their food and they attack people. It's something that's happened time and time again. So it's a sad thing that a lot of times bears need to be taken out by officials when they start becoming habitualized to receiving this food from human settlements. So this is a complex case. In past years, Manglesson closely followed Wyoming's beloved Grizzly 399. That's probably the most famous grizzly bear of all time in these parks. And his photographs of her and her cubs played a key role in making her the world's most famous bear. Manglesson named her last cub Spirit. His partner, Sue Cedarholm, gave the name Bonita to Grizzly 1063. It remains uncertain whether Spirit survived. Hopefully she did, after Grizzly 399 was struck and killed by a vehicle south of Jackson last fall. That was sad. In 399's absence, Bonita, Grizzly 1063, has gained prominence and popularity. Though her fame isn't quite what 399's was, she's quickly gained a loyal following and seems to be the bear that everyone is talking about this year, wildlife photographer Debbie Dixon of Gardner, Montana, told Cowboy State Daily. It boils down to location, Dixon said. Like Grizzly 399 before her, Bonita likes to hang out near roadways and other crowded areas. That's a death sentence right there. She's the most visible plentiful bear this year, Dixon said. That's why so many were aghast when 2 of 1063 cubs were killed and the third went missing. The third cub later reunited with his mother, apparently uninjured, much to the delight of Grand Teton grizzly watchers. That's good. Wildlife photographer Jeff Plum observed and photographed Grizzly 1063 with their 3 yearling cubs less than a week before the 2 cubs were found dead, apparently victims of a boar grizzly. And then it says grizzly boars will occasionally kill cubs that aren't theirs in hopes of putting the mother grizzly back into heat and impregnating her. I disagree with occasionally. That happens a lot. If it didn't happen, the population would be bigger than it is now. However, that usually happens with smaller cubs of the year rather than much larger, stronger, and faster yearling cubs. I would agree with that because I've seen some yearling brown bear and grizzly bear cubs that were 200 pounds or bigger. After a year, those cubs are, you know, young adults almost. They get pretty big. Manglesson said that big grizzly boars are sometimes scapegoats for wildlife agency officials. That's a pretty big accusation. In the case of Grizzly 1063 and her cubs, he thinks a boar was scapegoated for driving the mother and cubs apart before killing 2 of them, but he's skeptical whether that's what actually happened. My educated guess from on-the-scene reports and information was that the family was separated by hazing before they found the dead yearlings. So he's saying that the hazing caused the yearlings to be separated, and then the big boar was able to kill them easier without the mama bear there. Because it's hard to kill, especially yearlings with the mama bear, because they will put up fights. It talks about mama bears have been able to fight off grizzly bears twice as big as they are, just because a mama bear is so mean and they're fighting for their young. So he may have a point here. He may be correct. NPS, however, National Park Service, is claiming that the hazing didn't break up the family. So they put out a report, a statement saying they did not do it or have anything to do with it. So pretty interesting. When it comes down to it, this is something that happens with bears. And I always say that naturalists don't like to look at this nasty part of the bear behavior because that's just what happens on a regular basis. Meanwhile, in California, this is something that I didn't know. This was from Gripped. Bear spray is banned in California's national parks. Now, I guess this has always been this way. This is just for folks visiting Yosemite who didn't know about the rule, which is not new. So in this area, like Yosemite, Sequoia, Kings Canyon National Parks, there's no grizzly bears yet. I think they're going to make their way there with the way things are going. They're spreading. There's just black bears. And the idea was, well, black bears aren't as dangerous, so we're going to outlaw any weapons, and you can't even have bear spray in these parks. Now, there's some areas where they are allowing some bear spray as long as it's like a certain size. But, you know, in the other parks, like Sierra, Stanleyas, and Inyo National Forest, bear spray is typically allowed. Really, they should be allowing firearms because you know California is not allowing firearms in those national parks if they won't even allow bear spray. I like a 10 millimeter. We have another just in case holster here with the Dan Wesson 1911 chambered in 10 millimeter. Look at that beautiful leather work he did. I have a bunch of his holsters and it is simply my favorite, but you can get a chest holster. I have one of those too of his, and 10 millimeter, it just makes a lot of sense. 44 Magnum is way better, but you may only get 1 or 2 shots off at a charging bear, while you're going to get many more with the semi-auto with less recoil, and it has proven to be effective. We've shown time and time again in these studies. It is ideal? No, of course it's not ideal. What you really want is a hunting rifle, 45-70, or a 12 gauge with slugs, of course. But if you're hiking, a pistol can work. So thanks for tuning in, guys. I'll have a video out in the morning. It's Chuke, your friend in the field.
My name is Chuke. I like to just for fun, but now I have none. Oh, don't get shot by a bear, but I don't care, I got a 10mm. Chuke's Outdoor Adventures. Watch Chuke almost die every time.